There are signs of a cover-up of a murder here, but the question is, why? Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Michael Rosenblum. Viewer discretion is advised. Real quick before we get started, of course, hello, my name is Mike. If you're new to the channel, I tell multiple true crime stories every single week here on YouTube. So please subscribe if you're a bunch of cuckoo, kachoo, wackadoos like the rest of us and like that kind of thing. Also, I do have TikTok. I have a couple TikTok pages where I tell true crime stories in short form. So feel free to check that out. The links to that are going to be in the link tree in the description of this video below. The links will also pop up here at some point in the beginning and also at the end of the video. So check it out if you want to. Also in that link tree, you will find my merch store. We have like t-shirts and hoodies and stuff like that, and we do ship all over the entire world. So if you are interested, by all means, give it a whirl. And then lastly, if there is a case you would like me to cover, just send me a quick email. My email is listed below, makingatruecrimerer.com, and just send me the name of the case, where it happened, and when it happened, just a quick email, and then I'll add it to the list. I now have over 6,000 names on that list. I choose the cases I cover at random, so I will get to that case eventually. I just can't promise you when. But anyway, let's dive into, I don't know how to dive actually. I can jump into a pool and make a big splash because I'm fat. What is going on here? Anyway, let's talk about the case. Michael Rosenblum was born on April 12th, 1954 in Pennsylvania. And Pennsylvania and the Allegheny County area essentially is where he lived his entire life. His parents were Maurice and Barbara, and they were very loving parents. He grew up in a good home. But unfortunately, by the time Michael hit high school, he had already been experimenting with drugs. This would unfortunately get him in and out of trouble throughout the majority of his youth. And then this led him into becoming addicted to painkillers. By the time he's 25 years old, he is pretty much completely hooked on painkillers. And he has these very erratic mood swings. He goes up and down like pretty strong. He would become extremely irritable. He would become angry. He would become combative and, yell at people like his parents. His parents were a very strong support system for him. But his mom would say that during the 80s, this whole concept of tough love from parents is the late 70s, early 80s is really kind of when that sort of began. And she had heard about this and she decided, you know what, let's give Michael some tough love. And this is after years of trying to get Michael help. They put him into drug rehab centers. He would stay there for a few weeks, sometimes a few months. He would come out, everything would seem fine, but then he immediately goes right back into the behavior that got him there. And he was running with the wrong crowd, and that wasn't helping, and his parents were doing everything they could think of to get him the help he needs. But it is something he also had to participate in, and he just didn't seem to want to do that. And so after his most recent stint in a rehab center, he is caught at home by his parents taking more painkillers, or they find painkillers in his room, and they said, all right, that's it. This is time for the tough love to start. And they kicked him out of the house. He was there that night with his girlfriend, and they said, you've got to get out of the house now. You're no longer welcome in the house, and until you get off of these painkillers, until you get off of drugs, you're not welcome in the house. Michael is 25 years old at this point, and keep in mind, like I said, they were doing everything they could think of to get him help, and it just wasn't working, so they were desperate to try anything to see if it would work. Little did they know that when they kicked Michael out of the house that night with his girlfriend, they would never see him again. The family's home was in Baldwin, Pennsylvania. And that night when they left, according to his girlfriend Lisa, Michael was extremely agitated. He was in a very irritable mood, very upset, obviously because his parents just kicked him out, and it appeared that he had been just on some kind of high of some sort. This would prompt Lisa, because they were in her car, to drive to the nearest hospital, and she tried to get Michael admitted into the hospital, and he actually went in, but then an argument broke out between him and Lisa, and he got up and he stormed out of the hospital, and Lisa followed right behind him. Then they went to a gas station in nearby West Homestead, And there, Michael again he was being very loud and outspoken. And he told Lisa essentially hey, you stay here at the gas station and I'm gonna take the car. I'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find a way back to my parents' house. I'll find you there in 2 hours. She got out of the car. He got in the driver's seat of Lisa's car and he took off and he left her at the gas station. And that would be the last time that she would ever see Michael again. Lisa gets to his parents' house and tells them what happened. They're sitting at the house waiting all night for him to come back or for him to call, but he never comes back. He never calls. He never gets in touch with them ever again. Something felt off to Michael's mom. She said that Michael, obviously with this, addiction to painkillers, just needs money. And the money in his bank account, he left it all behind. And he hadn't touched it ever since. Ever since he disappeared, that money was never touched. All of his belongings were still at the house. He only left the house with what was on him, clothing-wise. He didn't bring anything with him. So his mom and dad would go to the local police station, I guess in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area. They would report Michael missing. The first thing they wanted to do, the police, is they wanted to search for Lisa's car because one of the detectives or private investigators with the Pittsburgh Police Department who was working on this case, he said that typically in cases like this, you're searching for a body, but we're also missing a car, and so they were kind of on the lookout primarily for the car because if they could find the car, hopefully they can find Michael alive. A week goes by, nothing. 2 weeks goes by, nothing. They don't find Michael, they don't find the car, they don't find any trace of him. They've interviewed people, nobody has seen him. The people he may have been running with in terms of the wrong crowds, they claim they hadn't seen him either. So Michael's dad, Maurice, he begins to investigate on his own. He begins to go around town to Pittsburgh, to Baldwin, all around this general area. He's putting up missing persons posters and flyers all over the place in hopes that someone, maybe their memories will be jogged if they see his photo and they'll come forward. But even this didn't work. There was a pretty hefty reward offered for any information that would lead to bringing him home, but nobody bit. Maurice traveled the country looking for him and tracing where his friends had lived. He even went all the way to California to question friends, and it all came up fruitless. 3 months later, the Baldwin Police Department contacts Michael's girlfriend, Lisa, to tell her over the phone, we have your car. It's in an impound lot. This is the car that Michael disappeared in. According to the Baldwin Police Department, they found the car just 2 hours after Michael was reported missing by his family. What's even stranger is the private investigator from the Pittsburgh Police Department. He had contacted, literally the day he started to investigate this, within a day of Michael disappearing, he contacted every police department in this entire surrounding area saying, if you have the car, here's a description of the car, please let us know if you find it. Here's a description of Michael, let us know if you find him. This included, he called the Baldwin Police Department. He has records to prove. He called them, he asked the question. And so 1, they didn't reveal they had the car when he called. And 2, if they found the car, maybe just so happened to be after he called, they never called him to say, hey, guess what? We found the car you're looking for. Apparently the car was found on River Road, which connected Baldwin, Pennsylvania to the south side of Pittsburgh. When the car was found, 2 of the tires were flat. The keys to the vehicle were never found. And the engine, they said to the touch, was very cool, as in it hadn't been driven at least for several hours. But there was no trace of the car's owner when the Baldwin Police Department claimed they found it. So Michael wasn't there, Lisa obviously wasn't there. There was nobody found with it. And there was no sign of a struggle in the car or outside the car. Again, according to the Baldwin Police Department. Within 15 minutes of the car being found, it's towed to the impound lot, and that's it. It just sits there. And they wait 3 months to call Lisa to say, hey, by the way, we have your car. Except the Baldwin Police Department, when now they're being questioned by the Pittsburgh Police Department, why didn't you inform us or anyone? And the Baldwin Police said, well, we sent a letter to Lisa, the car's owner, that we found the car within a day or 2 of us finding it. Lisa's like, I never got that letter, never got it. And the police would end up producing a copy of that letter, and it was dated, I think, on April 15th. And, it was signed by the police officer who initially found the car. They swear up and down, we sent you this letter, Lisa. Don't know why you didn't get it. But she's like, something doesn't seem right here. I would have gotten this letter. It doesn't make sense. Well, Michael's father, Maurice, during kind of shortly after the car was found, Maurice got 2 anonymous phone calls, both from men who did not say who they were. The first call said that Michael had been arrested by the Baldwin Police Department, and then they hung up. And then a second person called and said the same thing. Michael was arrested by the Baldwin Police Department, and then they hung up. Maurice continues to press the Baldwin Police Department of what they might know. They give him nothing. He continues to offer reward money for any information that helps find Michael or whatever may have happened to him. He gets nothing. Despite a large amount of money being offered, no one bites. No one gives in. On July 15th, this is now several months after Michael has disappeared, after he has been reported missing. July 15th, the Baldwin Police Department do something incredibly bizarre. They issue an arrest warrant for Michael Rosenblum for a robbery that occurred months after he was reported missing. The Pittsburgh Police Department heard this and like, what the f are they doing? What is happening here? And so the Pittsburgh Police Department interviews the witnesses from this armed robbery that occurred. And according to the witnesses, they didn't see the man's full face. Because the man was wearing these large aviator glasses and something was covering like the nose and some to do with the mouth. And so it was not a clear image of this man. However, for whatever reason, the Baldwin Police Department put out a complete composite drawing of the man, including the entire face, the eyes, the nose, the mouth. Despite the witnesses both claiming that they did not see the man's full face. They only saw his forehead and the bottom of like his chin. That's all they actually were able to see. But for some reason, the Baldwin Police Department put out a sketch of a full-faced man. When the private investigator who had been working on this originally with Pittsburgh Police, he said, that composite looks a lot like Michael's missing persons photo, and they like overlaid it, and it was almost like a trace. It was almost a copy of that image. They have no idea what the Baldwin Police Department is doing here. Like, what are you talking about? Like, he's missing. Where are you even getting this from? Like, how did you even come up with this? That, it must be Michael Rosenblum. What? Within like a couple of weeks or so, they end up completely dropping this arrest warrant. And it's like, oops, must have been a mistake. Like what? To Michael's dad and to the Pittsburgh Police Department's private investigator, this all looked like the Baldwin police were covering something up. That they knew something about what happened to Michael Rosenblum, and they're hiding it. They're covering it up for some strange reason. He actually the dad would take this concern to the Attorney General of Pennsylvania. They apparently investigated the Baldwin Police Department and said, there's no wrongdoing. In 1986, Maurice gets a letter, an anonymous letter. It said from a concerned friend that they need to speak to a woman named Jean Haslett. She had worked as a dispatcher for the Baldwin Police Department, but at this point she no longer does. And from this, Maurice would discover that there was accusations that the Baldwin Police Department, led by Chief Aldo Gaburi, had mishandled Michael's case from the get-go and very badly. Yeah, no shit. So according to Jean Haslett, Aldo Gaburi, the chief at the Baldwin Police Department, had instructed his clerk, Frank Capelli, to write up the letter that they said had been sent to Lisa. However, according to Jean, this letter was not even written up until 2 months after they found the car. They initially said that we had that letter typed up within 3 days and we send it to you. They even had it dated as April 15th. So Fred Capelli was ordered to type up this letter months later, and he was ordered to date it April 15th, even though it was months later. So they then go to interview Fred Capelli, because the dispatcher is telling this to Maurice and the private investigator. So they go to Fred Capelli, and he confirms it. He goes, yeah, I was ordered to write this letter up after they said it was already written. They told me to put that date on there, and they also tried to get the officer who had found the car originally, because like I said earlier, it was signed by that officer, this letter. But then they found out through Fred Capelli that that officer never signed that document. It was forged. That one of the officers there forged the signature. So Maurice, at this point, he is writing a letter to the Baldwin Borough Council to please look into this because something is very wrong here. Something was covered up, they're hiding something, and there is so much evidence to show it. And Fred Capelli and Ms. Hazlitt would both testify to this council about what they knew and what they said to show and prove that there were documents forged and that they were lying. The Baldwin Police Department was lying. And because of this, Aldo Gaburi was fired from the police department. Then, not but a couple of months later, Mr. Gaburi was reinstated back to his position at the Baldwin Police Department. It's believed they found out that this council, they were connected to people who were friendly with Aldo Gaburi. And that's probably why he was reinstated. It's who you know. At this point, Maurice and Michael's mom and everyone who is trying to find out the truth here, they all believe at this point that Michael is dead. But they don't know how, they don't know why, they don't know what happened, they don't know anything. They know Michael is gone. They have not been able to find him throughout all of this craziness. They still haven't found any trace of him. No one has claimed to see him. No one has done business with him. No one has ever used his social security number. His money was never touched from his bank account. Clearly, he's gone. But where he is and all that just went cold for years. And then in 1988, a psychic would come forward to Michael's parents and say, you need to look at this particular area for Michael's remains. And this just so happened to be on this like hillside, which was right by where his car was found, like right down the road. And right by that goes from, I guess, Baldwin to South Pittsburgh. And they have a bunch of people searching. They have like 30, 40 people go to that area just because why not? Even though a psychic told them, why not? And they found something. They found a 2 or 3 inch piece of bone that they would later determine was human bones. They also found the sole of a shoe and I think a torn piece of jeans that they confirmed were the same type of clothing that Michael was last seen wearing. And all of this was discovered right above River Road, where his car was found and all that. By 1990, Michael's family is able to have him declared legally dead, because at this point they knew he's dead. Again, they just don't know how. Then in 1992, about 3 miles from where the car was originally found, / where that bone was found, they found the pieces of a human skull. They did x-rays, or they had x-rays of Michael's skull from some, I guess, a previous medical issue. And I guess there were certain things on his x-rays that matched the skull that was found. And they confirmed that this was the remains of Michael. And I believe later on they would determine, I think with DNA, that the bone they found earlier and the skull all was his. Michael Rosenblum was dead, and he had been dead probably the entire time. He probably died the day he disappeared. However, they still have no idea how, because the remains they found were only a couple. They don't have his entire body. They don't know if he was shot, stabbed, strangled, suffocated, if he was pushed down somewhere, beat up. They don't know. They have no idea. What they do know is that the Baldwin Police Department lied very boldly, and they hid things. They were told, Michael's family was told by 2 different anonymous callers that Michael had been arrested by the police department. Suddenly they're there covering things up, hiding information. Did he die accidentally in their custody? Did they kill him because of some informant something? Was he working against someone who was their informant and they had to kill him? There's so many theories and reasons and all this, but they have no idea. Nobody knows what happened to Michael Rosenblum on that day. They just know that he is dead. He went missing, he was dead, and likely he was murdered. The Pittsburgh police, I believe, have labeled this case now as a possible homicide. They can't confirm homicide because they don't know how he died. There was a bunch of investigations done after this into certain police officers from the Baldwin Police Department. None of them were ever charged with anything. None of them were ever fired. None of them were ever given even a slap on the wrist. As a matter of fact, some of these police officers from the Baldwin Police Department would end up suing a magazine because the magazine had, painted them in a very not so good light. And they sued them it was like a libel suit, and they won. The officers won like $50,000. Sadly, Michael's father, Maurice, died in 2008. His mother, Barbara, died in 2018. Both of them died never knowing what exactly happened to their son. They knew something bad happened. They knew he was probably killed, but they just don't know why. They don't know who. They don't know anything. And they died not knowing anything. They barely even got to lay him to rest. They only laid a couple pieces of bone fragments and they cremated him. That's all they ever got of him. His mom, Barbara, she would say how much she blamed herself for doing that whole tough love thing and kicking him out of the house that night, because had she not done that, Michael may still be alive. But you can't say that for sure. He may have still left. The situation may have still happened, but she blamed herself. And I'm sure any parent in that situation probably would. But she wasn't the one to kill him. Someone else did. Someone murdered him, more than likely. And some high officials likely covered it up. And they hid it from Michael's family. That Aldo Gaburi guy, he died in 1997. And so if he did something super shady, he got away with it. Everyone who may have done something to Michael during that day got away with it. No one has been held accountable. No one has been arrested, charged. No one has been named a suspect. Nothing. And that just isn't fair. I mean, Michael Rosenblum, I think people say like, oh, he's a drug addict, right? He brought this on himself. And you hear that all the time in cases like this. But you know what? Stop. Like, he was still a human being. He was a person. And someone murdered another person. Someone murdered Michael, more than likely, allegedly. And nobody deserves that. Nobody deserves that. And Michael, just like every single other person who is the victim of some kind of crime, foul play, murder, kidnapping, what have you, Michael Rosenblum is still just as much deserving of justice that everyone else gets. And so if you have any information that may lead to the answers as to what happened to Michael Rosenblum that day in 1980, please contact the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania Police Department with whatever you know. You can report your information anonymously. You do not have to say who you are. You just have to say what you know. Someone somewhere out there knows the truth, and perhaps that someone is you. And it is now time to come forward. So if you have information, please help Michael Rosenblum get the justice he rightfully deserves. But that is it for this case. True crime, a Rooney Dooney Dingleberry Dongs. I hope you found it interesting. As usual, please subscribe, give this video a like, and follow me over on TikTok. Check out the merch store. All of that's in the link tree in the description of this video below. Recommended case, my email is listed below. I will add the name to my list. I'll cover it when I get to it. And yeah, yada yada. You gotta. Whoa. That was aggressive. I was like karate chopping the air. I don't know why I was doing that. That took a lot out of me, man. I'm winded. Is that bad? I just did this and I'm like heaving for air. And I think that's probably bad. I think I might be out of shape. I'm in a shape. I'm in the shape of like an overweight balloon animal. I don't know. It's some kind of shape, but it's not a normal shape. It's not the normal shape of a human. It's a very bizarre shape, and it needs to be reshaped back to normalcy. And that requires exercise and dieting, two things that I will not do. So that was it. That was how I'm saying goodbye to you guys. Jesus, I am so stupid and random. Anyway, that's how I said goodbye. By insulting my fatness. Okay. God damn it, I'm pathetic.